Charles Whitmore's laugh echoed through the glass-walled boardroom. Sharp as broken crystal. Your dad mops my floors, boy. What makes you think you can touch a $10 million prototype without breaking it? The guests, investors in polished suits, snickered, swirling glasses of champagne as if this were a private joke. Marcus Santos, 17, stood frozen for a moment, his father's janitor badge still clipped to his own shirt. He hadn't come here to impress anyone, only to help his dad carry supplies. Yet now, every eye in the room watched him like a bug under glass. Charles leaned back in his leather chair, smirking. Go on then. Show us what a janitor's kid can do. Or are you scared? Marcus stepped forward silently, his fingers brushing the edge of the malfunctioning server unit. What no one knew, not even his father, was that he'd seen problems like this before and solved them in minutes. Marcus Santos grew up in a 2-room apartment above a noisy laundromat on the south side of the city. His father, Daniel, worked nights as a janitor at Whitmore Industries, scrubbing marble floors no one bothered to glance at. Money was always short, but pride was something Daniel refused to lose. We may be poor, he told his son, but we do honest work. That makes us rich in the right way. Marcus listened, but he also dreamed. At 12, he found an abandoned radio in a trash bin, pried it open, and fixed it using nothing but a butter knife and duct tape. The spark was lit. Every broken toaster, fan, or second-hand laptop in the neighborhood found its way into Marcus's hands. With no money for classes, he spent nights in the public library, reading dusty engineering manuals, studying diagrams until the fluorescent lights blinked out. When the library closed, he worked by the glow of a flashlight under his blanket, scavenging old circuit boards from junkyards and teaching himself how to solder. Meanwhile, Charles Whitmore, heir to Whitmore Industries, lived in a world Marcus only saw on magazine covers. He was known for 2 things, his wealth and his arrogance. People like us build, Charles liked to say at cocktail parties. People like them clean up after us. It was no secret he saw Daniel Santos as little more than a uniform with a mop. That morning, Daniel had been asked to help set up for an exclusive investor demonstration, a chance for Charles to show off his company's newest $10 million prototype server unit. Daniel didn't have anyone to watch Marcus, so the boy tagged along to carry boxes and run errands. They entered the glass-walled conference floor through a service elevator, unnoticed at first among the flower arrangements and catering carts. Marcus took it all in. The sleek chrome tables, the cold air conditioning, the waiters in white gloves. It felt like another planet. But it didn't take long for Charles to notice. Spotting Marcus beside his father, he smirked to a group of investors. See that? Daniel's brought an assistant. Guess ambition runs in the family. Or maybe he just needed someone to polish the floor faster. The men chuckled politely. Daniel's jaw tightened, but he kept his head down. He'd survived 20 years in this job by swallowing insults like bitter pills. Marcus, however, didn't lower his eyes. He had learned to observe, the way engineers observe machinery, finding the weak points. And as the investors gathered around a gleaming prototype, Marcus noticed something no one else did. A faint hum out of sync, an indicator light blinking the wrong pattern. He didn't know yet that this small detail would turn the room upside down. The presentation began with all the polished Charles Whitmore was famous for. A towering screen globe behind him, displaying his company logo. Waiters glided across the floor, refilling glasses of champagne worth more than Daniel Santos made in a week. Charles spoke with that effortless confidence money buys, bragging about the server prototype that would redefine high-speed trading forever. But then, just as the investors leaned in for the live demo, something went wrong. The lights on the sleek metal tower flickered. The software of its cooling fan sputtered, and a red warning signal blinked on the display. Charles frowned, tapped the control tablet, and muttered, "Probably just a glitch." His tech staff scrambled, whispering to each other, running diagnostics. The room filled with nervous energy. Every second of downtime cost millions in investor confidence. And that was when Charles noticed Marcus again, standing behind his father near the service table, watching with sharp, unblinking eyes. "What are you staring at, kid?" Charles said loudly, drawing the room's attention. "Planning to mop up the mess for us?" The guests laughed politely. Daniel opened his mouth to speak, but Marcus stepped forward. "I think I know what's wrong." Marcus said quietly. The laughter grew louder. Charles raised an eyebrow. Oh, really? Enlighten us, genius. This is a $10 million machine. What could a janitor's kid possibly know about it? More than you think, Marcus murmured. Charles pounced, smelling an opportunity to humiliate the boy. Tell you what, he announced to the room, I'll make a bet. If you can even figure out what's wrong, not fix it, just figure out, I'll give you $100. He pulled a crisp bill from his wallet and waved it in the air. But if you touch it and break it, your dad will be out of a job before lunch. A hush fell. Daniel grabbed Marcus's arm. Don't, he whispered. It's not worth it. But Marcus's calm gaze never wavered. He stepped up to the server rack, ignoring the scattered laughter. His hands hovered near the control panel, tracing the blinking sequence with his eyes. And in that instant, memories flashed. Nights crouched over a broken radio at age 12, soldering wires by candlelight when the power was cut, building a homemade robot out of scrap, just to prove to himself he could, sneaking into the public library to read engineering manuals far beyond his grade level, fixing Mrs. Hernandez's toaster, Mr. Lee's old laptop, the school projector, not for money, but because he loved the puzzle of making dead things live again. Back in the boardroom, Charles smirked. Look at him. He's frozen. He has no idea what he's doing. Marcus bent down, scanning the indicator lights, then pressed a series of buttons on the control pad. Beads of sweat formed on the technician's forehead. Hey, maybe we shouldn't let a kid. Quiet. Charles snapped. I want to see this. It'll be entertaining. Marcus tapped the side of the server once, listening for the faint change in tone. Power flow imbalance, he said finally, his voice calm but certain. Cooling subbing at 3 isn't syncing. If you reroute to the auxiliary regulator, it won't overheat. The room went silent for a heartbeat, then erupted in derisive laughter. Listen to this little engineer. Charles boomed. Next he'll tell us how to run the stock market. But one guest, an older man in a tailored gray suit, leaned forward. Wait, he said slowly. That's actually consistent with the error code I saw earlier. Charles waved him off. Coincidence. He's just guessing. He turned back to Marcus, eyes glittering with mockery. All right, prodigy. Go ahead. Touch it. Show us all what a janitor's kid can do. Daniel stepped between them. Sir, please, he's just a boy. And you're just a janitor. Charles shot back, loud enough for everyone to hear. Both of you should remember your place. Marcus gently moved his father aside. Dad, let me try. His voice held a quiet strength Daniel had never heard before. The room waited, breathless. Marcus knelt in front of the machine, tools gleaming under fluorescent lights. But they weren't his. He picked up a screwdriver left behind by the panicked technicians and began opening the panel. His fingers moved with practiced precision, as though this were an old friend rather than a multi-million-dollar prototype. Look at him pretending. Charles sneered, sipping his drink, in over his head already. But the gray-suited guest watched silently, eyes narrowing. Something about the boy's movements, quick, confident, deliberate, didn't look like guesswork at all. The room fell silent except for the soft click of Marcus's screwdriver. He removed the side panel and traced the wires with his fingertips, his brow furrowed, lips pressed together. Not a wasted movement. Not a hint of hesitation. The investors, who had been laughing minutes ago, now leaned forward, their smiles fading. Marcus unplugged a thin cable, adjusted a regulator switch, then reached for the diagnostic tablet. Do you have a microcalibrator? He asked the stunned technician. The man nodded and handed it over with shaking hands. Marcus adjusted the voltage input, tightened the connector, and reset the power sequence. Kid, you're going to fry it, Charles said sharply, his voice louder now, no longer dripping with amusement. You're guessing. This isn't some toy radio you found in the trash. Marcus pressed the restart button. The machine hummed to life. The red warning light vanished. Cooling fans purred in perfect rhythm, smooth and balanced. On the display screen, System Diagnostics flashed 100% optimal in glowing green letters. For a full 5 seconds, no one spoke. Then the gray-suited guest stepped forward. That's remarkable, he said quietly. You bypassed the auxiliary regulator to level the current flow. Do you even realize what you just did, young man? Marcus looked up, calm and steady. I just fixed it. The guests erupted, not with laughter this time, but applause. The technicians who had been scrambling stood frozen, mouths open. Daniel Santos blinked back tears, unsure whether to hug his son or pull him away before Charles exploded. This is absurd. Charles snapped, his face flushed red. Anyone could have done that. It's not a big deal, actually. The guest interrupted, his voice firm. It is. I'm Martin Hayes, CTO at Kessler Dynamics. We spent 6 months troubleshooting a similar problem. Your boys solved it in under 5 minutes. He turned to Marcus, eyes gleaming. Where did you learn to do that? Marcus shrugged lightly. The library. And broken things people didn't want anymore. A ripple of murmurs swept through the crowd. Someone whispered, self-taught. Another said, that's real talent. Even the waiters paused to watch. Charles tried to laugh, but it came out harsh and hollow. Don't be ridiculous. This is just a lucky guess. He probably tampered with it when no one was looking. Enough, Whitmore. Hayes cut him off sharply. Give credit where it's due. He placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder. You have an extraordinary mind. Ever thought about engineering school? Daniel stared in stunned silence as the room turned, not toward Charles, but toward Marcus. The same people who had smirked minutes ago were now praising his son, shaking his hand, asking questions. Charles slammed his glass on the table. Everyone stop acting like this boy is a hero. He's a janitor's kid. And yet, Hayes said evenly, you just save your presentation. He glanced at the investors. If this is how you treat talent, Charles, maybe you're not as smart as you think. A few guests nodded, some openly glaring at Charles. The power in the room had shifted. The laughter was gone, replaced by admiration from Marcus and thinly veiled disgust at the arrogant host. Daniel stepped forward, voice unsteady. Son, you did it. Marcus gave a small smile. I just fixed what was broken, Dad. But everyone else knew it was much more than that. Martin Hayes kept his hand on Marcus's shoulder as the room settled. Young man, he said, his voice carrying weight, I run one of the top engineering firms in the country. If you're interested, I can arrange a full scholarship and a summer internship starting today. Gasps rippled through the room. Daniel blinked in disbelief. Sir, you're serious? Completely, Hayes replied. Talent like this shouldn't be wasted. He glanced sharply at Charles. Certainly not mocked. Marcus looked down at his shoes, suddenly shy, under the bright lights. Thank you, sir, but I'd like to finish school first. I still have a lot to learn. The humility in his voice struck the room harder than any boast could have. Even the wealthiest investors, accustomed to arrogance, exchanged approving glances. Daniel put a trembling hand on his son's shoulder. I'm proud of you, Marcus. More than you'll ever know. His voice cracked, and for a moment the hard-working janitor forgot everyone else was watching. Behind them, Charles Whitmore fumed. He tried to rally the room. Everyone's overreacting. You're impressed by a kid twisting a few wires? This is ridiculous. But no one laughed with him. Two investors muttered to each other, shaking their heads. One quietly slipped his checkbook back into his briefcase. Another whispered, if this is how he treats people, imagine how he runs his company. The mood shifted completely. Where Charles once held court, now people drifted toward Marcus and his father, asking questions, offering cards, smiling warmly. Mr. Santos, Hayes said to Daniel, if your son wants to visit Kessler Dynamics, my door is always open. Here's my card. Daniel accepted it with shaking hands. I don't know what to say. Say yes when you're ready, Hayes replied with a smile. Charles slammed his tablet shut. This meeting's over. He barked, trying to regain control, but the power in the room had already slipped through his fingers. His arrogance had cost him something far more valuable than money: respect. As father and son walked toward the elevator, Daniel whispered, I told you, son. Honest work pays off. Marcus grinned. Yeah, Dad. But it helps to know a little engineering, too. Behind them, investors avoided Charles's eye. One even muttered, he just lost the smartest kid I've seen in years. As the elevator doors closed behind Marcus and his father, the boardroom buzzed, not with laughter, but with respect for the boy who had just rewritten every assumption in the room. Charles Whitmore had shown his arrogance. Marcus had shown his character. True talent knows no uniform, no paycheck, no last name. It can rise from a janitor's home as easily as from a mansion. And when that talent is met with humility and hard work, no insult can hold it down. If this story of hidden genius and justice touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. We share stories that prove greatness can come from anywhere, and sometimes from the very people the world underestimates most.